There's something that's more important than how frequently you do MAT when it comes to the results that you get from MAT. And that's what we want to talk with you about today. We're going to cue our introduction and dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast, brought to you by Muscle Activation Schoenberg. We're your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And today we're discussing this idea of one thing that is more important than how frequently you get muscle activation techniques when it comes to the results that you get from muscle activation techniques and your ability to maintain and sustain those results, all right? We want to let you know that if you want to start taking action on what we're talking about today, that's exactly what we can help you with at our studio, Muscle Activation Schoenberg, where we specialize in muscle activation techniques. So all you need to do to see our availability and get on our schedule is go to our website, www.matschoenberg.com, click the big green button that says Get Started, and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. All right, so with muscle activation techniques, if you are experiencing some kind of symptom, and whether it's been there for a short period of time or a long period of time, if you are new to the MAT process, we find it to be very beneficial in these cases to meet on a somewhat frequent basis, meaning like once a week or so, schedule permitting, okay? But once symptoms kind of calm down and your function overall is at a really stable and steady place, you kind of go into a maintenance type process with MAT. There's something that we find to be actually far more important than frequency, okay? Because a lot of people think, oh, well, do I need to keep doing this, every single week for the rest of forever? And the answer to that is no, and especially when you get to a place where you feel like, okay, my body feels really good. I feel strong. I feel mobile. I feel like, I can do all the things I want without breaking down. Then you can go into more of a maintenance plan. There's something that is more important than frequency. You don't think, oh, I still need to be here every single week. If you want to keep coming every week, you certainly can. And we have clients that do, and they continue to progress. But once you feel like you're at a point where you no longer are interested in continuing to push the envelope, continuing to progress your body forward, you just want to maintain where you're at, there's something that's more important than the frequency. That's what I want to talk with you about today.
That's right. If you're wanting to progress, again, we like to start at a more frequent basis. But if you are at a place where you're hoping to maintain how you're feeling, maintain your function, that's where we start seeing people start feeling like, well, I'm feeling pretty good, see you when I don't feel good. And that we almost like to call that, but it's not really this, but we always call it like emergency room services. It's like, oh shoot, my knee feels so bad. Let me call Charlie and Julie up. And that's fine and well to do. But the more potent way to continue on with MAT is to maintain a certain amount of consistency rather than think, I'm going to pour on the frequency when I'm symptomatic and then I'm just going to peace out for a while, and then pour on the frequency when I'm not feeling so good and then peace out. Honestly, when people find a more consistent schedule, whether that's every 4 weeks, every other week, every 6 weeks, whatever is, you and your practitioner, you and us, we can figure that out for you. But people seem to get better results. They feel really good, through the time when they're not more intense on getting MAT, meaning when they're less symptomatic, they're still feeling really good. And honestly, when you do get a symptom, extinguishing that symptom and getting you back to baseline and getting you back to feeling good is a lot faster when they do pop up.
Yeah, absolutely. That last point is a huge one because it's not that things aren't going to pop up, but you recover so much faster when they do, when you are on some kind of consistent schedule. Again, whether that is every other week, every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, whatever is working for your schedule and ultimately for your body, you respond at a rate that is significantly faster when you maintain a consistency with your scheduling, with your exposure to MAT, versus if you wait until symptoms get bad enough that you just have to call. I just have to do this now. Because what ends up happening in those scenarios is there's such a hole that you have to dig yourself out of just to get back to baseline function, versus when you maintain your consistency and something pops up, it's usually like one session and you're good. You're back to your baseline super quickly because you've been maintaining all along with the consistency of your schedule. So we find this to be just a huge, huge thing for people. Again, we have a lot of people that come in like twice a month, and that frequency works really well for people. I have a handful of people that will come in every 4 weeks, and that works pretty well for them. And I have some people that come in, every 6 weeks, and that works pretty well for them. As a general rule, the more active you are in your life and with the events that you're doing, the more frequently you're going to need to get your body tuned up. And so if you're not very active and your activity consists of like going for pretty leisurely walks and kind of doing stuff around your house, you could get by with doing every 4 to 6 weeks. But if you're working out pretty hard, you're challenging yourself, you may be going for runs, you're lifting weights, you're doing some classes or whatever, then that twice a month tends to be really, really powerful for people to help maintain where they're at. Again, if you want to kind of keep pushing and building your strength, building your mobility, then a higher frequency is oftentimes needed. But to just kind of maintain that, okay, yeah, like I'm feeling good, I'm feeling strong, I want to keep this, and I'm going to keep being active, that, twice a month tends to work really well for a lot of people.
And Charlie, I love what you were saying there. And one that I was thinking of that I think you missed a little bit was when people start feeling good, they start working out more.
That's a great point. No, it's such a great point, right?
And so sometimes you're like comparing, okay, I was pretty sedentary doing leisurely walks and twice a month feels good, but now I'm feeling physically good and I actually want to start changing like my physical health. So I started exercising more, and not even in a silly way or like you're being mindless or whatever, but because you're regularly exposing any type of weaknesses that you might have in your body when you are regularly exercising, you might realize like, hey, I actually want to go back to once a week or more frequent, because now I'm consistently challenging my body. I'm consistently exposing my weaknesses, and lifting the weights. And so, but the main point is figuring out something that you can be consistent with rather than jumping in and out. Because really, usually when we first meet with someone and someone's coming into our practice, it takes a chunk of time to I guess a word could be like stabilize their system, but get their system so that they're not like teetering on the edge of like complete catastrophe if they haven't already gotten there, where, their back is completely flared up or they're having to limp over a hip that's bothering them or whatever it is. And so we get them to a place where they're feeling pretty darn good. And that's going to take a chunk of time. Maybe that's, once a week for 5 weeks. Maybe that's twice a week for 5 weeks. Maybe that's once a week for 10 weeks. Who knows what it would be. Something that's more frequent up front. And the goal is that we never go back to that place of like, my body feels so terrible that, whatever. We want to keep all of that maintenance that we've done. And so we can get you to a point where you're only 1 or 2 sessions away when you do have a flare up, right? So like you do overdo it on a vacation or something and you come back and you're like, wow, my back is really flared up. Great news. You've been consistent this whole time. You're very close to feeling really good. What we find being more time heavy again is when people take complete breaks. They don't find that consistent schedule, and then you have a flare up down the line. And then now a lot of times it's again a time heavy thing where you're coming in very frequently again for that chunk of time to get you back. And then you're not so close to feeling great again. But we look at you feeling great again. It's just a lot better for the consistency. And I think in 2 ways. Number one, your system is stronger. Like your nervous system and muscle system are just going to be stronger because you're regularly doing MET. You're regularly exposing yourself to this stimulus. The other thing is that your practitioner will get to know your body and kind of know the areas that, oh, I know when we get to this area, it really affects how the knee is working or how your back is feeling, things like that. So in 2 ways, that consistent schedule really helps people feel good consistently and recover when they have, a back step with their physical health.
Exactly. Now, y'all may not know this about Julie, but she speaks pretty good Spanish, in my opinion. And so...
I don't
what
know about
you
that.
do?
Okay,
you do.
pretty good.
You do. Okay. So, let me tell this story. Okay. So you took Spanish through high school, right?
Uh-huh.
And you took it through college.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Cool. So, like, that's a pretty good amount. Like, we'll call it like 8 years of learning Spanish. Okay. Then our daughter goes into a Spanish immersion program for kindergarten. And so from the time you finished college until our daughter started kindergarten, had you really practiced Spanish all that much?
Zero.
Okay, cool. So you went from like high frequency to nothing. Okay. Now, you're not back to doing as intensely of Spanish, intensive, learning Spanish as you did in high school and college, right?
Right.
But just the little bits over the last couple of years that you've been practicing like on a similar regular basis with our daughter since she's in this Spanish immersion program, do you feel like a lot of it's come back?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So we see this in so many areas of our life. And if you've taken a foreign language at any point in your life and you didn't keep up with it, then you've experienced this same phenomenon, okay? It happened with me with German, where I took German for 4 years in high school, and I felt like, okay, like I can speak this pretty well by the time I graduated high school. I didn't do it in college, and, I haven't done it since, and now it's just kind of like fragmented here and there. So you know that if you expose yourself to something and then you remove yourself from that exposure, the adaptations from that exposure go away. Okay, we see this in all areas of our life. And in order to get those adaptations back, you don't need to go as intensely and as heavy as you did, initially to create those adaptations, to learn the stuff, whether it's Spanish or, whether it's MAT, whatever, right? You can just kind of do these, little sprinklings, all along the way, and in a relatively short period of time compared to how long it took you to initially get those adaptations, you can feel like you're back to where you were. And so I feel like, with the Spanish, that's a great example. We see that same phenomenon happen with MAT as well. I just want to go back to a point that you brought up not that long ago when we transitioned with our talking, and I thought it was such a great point that when people feel better, they start exercising more. And I tell you, in 15 and a half years of doing MAT, not once have I ever met somebody who was like, okay, now I'm feeling stronger. Now I'm feeling more mobile. Now I'm feeling less pain. And I'm just going to sit around and do nothing now. Like that, not once has that ever been the conversation. And so even if you're like, oh, well, I don't really like exercising. I don't really like, getting sweaty. I don't really like moving my body, all this stuff. Well, a lot of times that ends up being the case because your body may not be feeling that well, because you may not be as mobile as you would like to be, because you're not as strong as you would like to be. And as your body gets stronger, as your body gets more mobile, as your body starts feeling better, you'll find that you become more and more inclined to like, yeah, I'm going to go out and do stuff because I can, because it doesn't feel as taxing as it once did, because, oh, this is actually enjoyable now. And so I think that is such an important point that you made. And I just want to highlight that again, because again, not once has it ever been the case where somebody's like, I feel way better now. So now that I feel way better, I'm just going to sit around and do nothing. Like every single person across the board is like, okay, I'm going to start walking more. Maybe I'm going to start, doing some runs. Oh yeah, I want to start playing golf again. Whatever it is, there's something that you do with your body that has been limited because of how your body feels, how your body's been functioning, your strength, your mobility, whatever it is. And as those things improve, you get back to doing those activities again, and so your overall activity levels increase. So I thought that was a really important point, and I'm glad you brought that up. So while we're talking today, as you're hearing all this, if you're thinking to yourself, yeah, okay, this is something that I need to start doing, I want to start taking action on it, I want to start getting consistent with my muscle activation technique sessions, that's exactly what we can help you with at our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, where we specialize in muscle activation techniques. So all you need to do to see our availability and get on our schedule is go to our website, www.matschaumburg.com, click the big green button that says Get Started, and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. We always appreciate your time and attention, your ears on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, your eyes on YouTube, wherever you consume our content. If you wouldn't mind leaving us a rating and review, it always means the world to us when you do. We are wishing you a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.